guest here, Gerard Adams. How you doing today, man?
What's going on?
Doing good? Well, we're out here in New York City. Gerard, why don't you go ahead and share your story on how you achieved massive success as an entrepreneur?
Thank you. I appreciate you coming out to New York and interviewing me. It's been an amazing journey for sure. Being an entrepreneur, I feel like, really, I didn't choose to be an entrepreneur. I really feel like it chose me. From a very, very young age, I just was had a natural hustler mentality. I always wanted to create things, wanted to kind of build a life for myself. And I grew up in a small town called Belleville in New Jersey. Two really hardworking parents, that really kind of set the tone for work ethic for me in my whole entire life. I really feel like I really owe it all to them for instilling the great values. I feel like any great entrepreneur really, you really have to carry great values. Your character, is really important. Integrity and doing things for the right reasons, and work ethic. And my father always raised me to be a leader. As an athlete at a young age, so he always wanted me to be a leader. And even it's interesting. I was never the smartest kid growing up. I was never the best athlete. I was always like on second string or third string. But because my father instilled that leadership, mentality, no matter what, I had a voice. Made sure to have a voice. So if I was in the locker room, I was motivating my team, even if I wasn't starting. In school, I was motivating people around me. Even though I was a C or B student. You know what I'm saying? But I always figured out a way to push those around me. Graduated. Once I graduated high school, I grew up. My father, worked for Prudential, and he wanted me to go to college. He wanted me to go to Princeton. I also couldn't go to Princeton because I wasn't the smartest kid. So I was gonna go to a school called Colwell College, and then I went. My first semester, I was like, I noticed they were telling me what classes I got to take, ready to get to my major, and I really wanted to learn more about finance.
Right.
I wanted to learn more about also the stock market and things. And I noticed very quickly that it was a business. And I was like, you know what? I told my father, I was like, I feel like college is one of the biggest businesses in the world. I don't want to waste your money. I really feel that I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I want to really give it a chance to build, create my own destiny. And, my father was always the type to be like, take a risk, whatever, but you have to figure out if you fail how to get back up. I'm not going to be there for you, but it's your life. And so I'll never forget, it was like my first semester finals week, and I was like, you know what, I'm doing it, I'm taking a risk. And I dropped out, and my first company was, and I always love to invest in things or create things that I want, that I want, I'm looking for, a problem that I'm looking to solve. I think that any great innovator, it really comes from something that they're a problem that they're trying to solve, or there's something that they're looking for. I think that's where some of the greatest innovations have ever come from. And at the time, I was trying to learn about the stock market. My father, I would get home from school and see, he'd be, wanted me to tell him what the Prudential stock ticker was at. And I was like, what the hell is the stock market thing? I see, and I know I can make a lot of money there. So when I started to I was like, all right, I'm gonna use the internet as a tool. Obviously the internet is one of the greatest tools to self-educate yourself, as it is social media and everything else. And at the time, I was looking up different forums to learn from traders that were online talking about stocks that they were investing into. I was like, well, maybe that's a way for me to learn. Let me start going into these communities online and learning from different investors. And I quickly realized that the two that I came across, one was Silicon Investor, another one was Raging Bull. They were forums where investors were talking about the stocks that they were investing in, but none of them had any form of credibility. So I was like, wow, there's an opportunity here for me to create a forum for other knowledge traders that are trying to learn about the stock market also, but let me add a rating system similar to eBay, right? Why would you buy something from eBay without understanding who the person is actually a credible person, right? So now I'm on that forum and I'm talking to other traders. If I see a guy with 4 or 5 stars and I can click on his name and see stocks that he has picked, I know this guy is actually truly a guru, like about picking stocks. Yeah. So that was like the first thing that I wanted to do, so that I can have traders that come on my site and I can learn from them. I think that one of my greatest mentors always told me something. He said, I'm not an expert at any one thing. I'm an expert of experts. And I've always carried that mentality in the sense that that's why I always love to co-create. I always like to partner. I always like relationships and building it. Whether you're my friend or do business with you, I really feel that that's how you really can grow. You know, we all have something to offer each other. You know, and it's really about, you know, networking and learning from your peers, your mentors, or just everybody has a story. You know what I'm saying? You can learn something from everybody's story. And I'm out here, you know, trying to tell you mine.
That's awesome. So how important is your network? You know, I mean, you were just talking about that. How really, for everyone watching, you know, how important is building a network?
You know the saying, like your network is your net worth, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, I truly believe, you know, especially in our era, you know, with the availability we have through technology to really connect, I think it's an unprecedented moment to be an entrepreneur right now. You can really truly learn and connect. And I remember when we started Elite Daily. Now fast forward, right? You know, 6, 7, 8 years after I started my first company, I emailed Mark Cuban. You know, Mark Cuban responded like that.
What?
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you cannot, as an entrepreneur today, you cannot, you know, be afraid to set boundaries. You need to push yourself. You need to get out there. You need to look for mentors. You need to make it happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, network. The same way that you call me up, you know, to sit here.
When it comes down to it, mentorship is one of the most important things you have to look for, especially as an entrepreneur. You know, I always say, if you want to be good at basketball, you're going to listen to Michael Jordan. You know, if you want to become a badass entrepreneur, you're going to listen to Mark Cuban or Gerard Adams or, you know, people who've done it before. And when we sat down, I even said, I go, look, I love taking advice from people who have what I want. Going to mentors, I mean, who's your biggest mentor? I mean, it doesn't have to be a physical one. I mean, maybe you read books, maybe you listen to somebody.
I have to say it's my father for sure. You know, like I told you, from a very young age, instilled the leadership characteristics, the work ethic, the key values that have made me, you know, not just a great entrepreneur, but a great man, you know, to the people around me, you know. And so he would be my greatest mentor. Other than that, like last night I was celebrating Ryan Blair's birthday. You know, he is one of the dopest entrepreneurs out there. Highly recommend his book. His book, Nothing to Lose, Everything to Gain, was a book that I had read and I had passed on to my 2 co-founders with it. When we started Elite Daily, I was like, you gotta read this book. You know, from gang member to multimillionaire, you know, really, really dope guy, and really, really smart. And he, even up through the acquisition, like, was a great advisor, and he's become one of my best friends. He's cool. But even back to when I first started becoming an entrepreneur, you know, one of the greatest things that happened to me is I failed, right? And a lot of entrepreneurs talk about that, right? How important it is to not have the fear of failure. But that failure, you know, the company that I was working for at the time, actually, like I was doing the investor relations when I first started, you know, taking the entrepreneurial route. And when that company failed, I learned so much from it. And the CEO at the time had become a really great mentor of mine.
Yeah. Wow. So let's talk about Elite Daily a little bit. How, you know, you got it started. Obviously, your co-founders. How you guys got all this thing rocking and rolling. And when did it start getting, you know, real for you? Like, okay, we're gonna, you know, make this thing huge.
Yeah. That was, you know, that was one of the best, you know, journeys that I've been able to be a part of. It's connected so many people. It's made such a big impact, man. I feel blessed to have been a part of that company. It was, you know, for me, you know, this I started with 2 other guys, Jonathan St. Pedro and David, who's the CEO now. And David was my intern when we first started it, working with me, and you know, we kind of, between us, me, David, Jonathan, we kind of just were looking for a publication online that spoke our language, that was really for Gen Y and covers all the different verticals that we were looking for. We felt like we were opening up so many different tabs to get the news that we wanted, you know. And it was even like the same way, like when I was like flying to meet other entrepreneurs or meet clients, I was always buying like Entrepreneur Magazine, Maxim to look at chicks, you know, Rob Report to look at cars and stuff, like, you know, Wall Street Journal, like so many different, I was always buying so many different publications to get all the news I wanted. So it was like, why don't we start something that really covers every one of these verticals, is coming from our voice, is coming from our generations, not all these other publications were handed down to us, from past generations. Let's create something that's by us, for us, and that was the initial motivation behind it.
And then from there, you just expanded it and took it to another level. Like, how far in was it where you were like, okay, this is getting really big?
It was pretty quick. I mean, what was cool about it was that from the very, very beginning, we were having fun. As an entrepreneur, you need to be able to do things like, you're here really truly for the passion and for the love of doing it and have fun doing it. And we just, from the very, very beginning, we weren't focusing on money. We were focusing on the content. We were focused on the mission, and we were having fun doing it. So we were taking it serious from the very, very beginning. But I think like maybe 3 months in or 6 months in, I was like, let me contact Complex Media, to see if we can do like, collaboration or whatever. And we went back and forth with them in emails. And I think when they actually came back to us and tried to make a deal with us that early, that's when I was like, wow, we're really starting to catch fire here.
Yeah.
And we didn't do that deal, but that's when it really started to take off. And we now over 80 million unique visitors. I mean, it's just at a level now that's just awesome.
Now, when you got to the acquisition, obviously, how was that experience for you, especially as a young entrepreneur?
It's the dream, As an entrepreneur, the dream is, you have an idea, you have a concept, and really see it come to fruition, all the way to the point where, it's truly making an impact, and you can get it to a point where someone wants to acquire you, that's like the dream, to have that type of success.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very cool, but I learned a lot from it. And then as an entrepreneur, it's tough too to make a decision, because a lot of times you get emotionally tied to something.
It's your baby, yeah.
It's your baby, so it's hard, right, to know when is the right time. So, I mean, that's why you really need to be able to have a really good relationship with your partners, and I had a lot of respect for my co-founders, day in and day out, and the work that the whole team put in. It was because of them, right? Like, everyone behind, every one of those writers, everybody who was in that office that was day in and day out, you really have to, any great leader will tell you that you have to put the desires of others before yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, you truly can, be a great leader and make an impact. And I felt, so after really spending time with my co-founders and understanding why they felt that it was a great partnership, with this acquisition with Daily Mail, where it really would help us scale the company and give us the infrastructure we needed, the security for the team, and everyone that was really day in and day out with us from day one. It made a lot of sense, and you have to really weigh all those variables. And it was a great win for us as co-founders too.
You wanted, to speak to Gen Y. So if you see a young entrepreneur like myself and like a lot of people out there, I think right now is a very attractive time to become an entrepreneur, especially since you're young. Social media's out there. Not a lot of people want to work for somebody else.
Yeah.
Someone want to build their own thing. What is, if you could say one thing that would reach every single young entrepreneur in the entire world and they would listen to you, what would it be?
First of all, this is definitely the most entrepreneurial generation in history. It's an unprecedented moment to seize opportunity right now and follow your passion and go after your dreams and make it happen. And the ability to do it right now it's there, And I would tell you that focus on creating value for others. Really focus also on your passion, and make an impact. Really make an impact on the people that are around you. Look for good partnerships, but most importantly, just go after it. Don't fear uncertainty of what ifs. Don't overanalyze things. Really understand that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fail. You learn to adapt. You learn from those experiences. But just go for it. Really go for it.
Now, really quick before we end this interview, I kind of want you to talk about your personal brand right now that you're building and your Instagram and the value that you're providing for a lot of people.
I mean, so right after the Elite, with the Elite Daily acquisition, I really feel that it's the largest millennial-based media publication in the world right now. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to say to myself, if Elite Daily has been able to impact that many, this millennial generation, I really want to do my part, be a part of something like that, to inspire, motivate, and educate, this generation. And I want to be able to share that. And I have something really cool that I'm working on to not only educate and get content out there, that's why I'm focusing on my brand, but something that I'm launching that is major, that I'm looking forward to telling the world about soon. So.
You guys heard it here first, man. I mean, follow Gerard Adams NYC on Instagram. You have Twitter, Facebook. I mean,
yeah.
And we'll put the link to everything below. But Gerard, thank you for hopping on with me today, man.
Thank you too, man.
Thank you for everything. All right.
Make it happen.